Happy Devil's Thursday. I got my days right, Nick, because all week I've been screwed up with the schedule. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Nick Villano of pucksandpitchforks.com. This is the State of the Fan Address, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in North and South Jersey bunkers. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Talking Devils hockey, the playoff preview edition of 2025. As your New Jersey Devils have made the playoffs, clinched a while back, and now we wait as the schedule finally came out. Basically had to rearrange my entire 2 weeks of scheduling on my personal time. We got doctor's appointments, got to move, Easter Sunday, got to tell the in-laws, I'll be doing something else. And then, moving stuff during the week. You got 6 p.m. Eastern start on that Tuesday, game 2. You might as well start it at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
They've been doing this all season to us, the NHL scheduling.
Doesn't the NHL know that Tuesday is bath night in my house? It's really complicated.
Yeah. Don't they realize Tuesday? I don't know. I was trying to make up something. I couldn't think of anything.
I wanted to watch that Devils game with a margarita in my hand. But I mean, listen, I guess I get happy hour prices on the margarita now if we have a 6 p.m. start. So I guess there's something.
Something.
What are we doing here? This is ridiculous. The schedule is ridiculous.
I sympathize for those going to games 1 and 2 down in Carolina. I'm not saying Carolina fans. I'm not giving them an itch. I've been trash talking them for at least a week.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan, say if you bought, if you're a Devils fan in Raleigh, because there's probably half of Raleigh's population is New Jersey. Say if you bought you're a Devils fan, you bought 2 tickets. Now you find out it's on Easter Sunday, and that could derail plans. It may not. It is a 3 o'clock Eastern start, but it's right smack.
People have dinner on Easter.
Easter's
very similar to Easter is very similar to Thanksgiving. You have a very early dinner.
But could you have it at 12 o'clock and skip out and go to the game? No. It's family time. I was hoping that they would put it at 7, so you could do the family time and the noon and the afternoon, but they tailgate down in Raleigh, so it's all messed up. It's not like it hasn't happened before. There were plenty. There was actually a Devils Carolina Hurricanes game back in 2001 in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It was the Easter Sunday. I call it the Easter Sunday Massacre. Matter of fact, it might have been the game that Shane Willis got drilled by Scott Stevens, if my memory serves me correct. Okay. Only Vinny Parise actually looked that up. He'll look it up.
You're talking about, but I don't know the game.
I think it was Easter Sunday. Because I remember.
Was that the one time? Because the Devils are 1-5, 1-4, I think, against the Hurricanes in the playoffs, right? As far as series go.
This is 2001. This is where they went on their.
So that was the one time they won, right? They've only beat them once.
They've only beat them once. Well, the next year in 2002, they lost to the Hurricanes, I believe.
And then was it the year the Hurricanes won it all? No, that was a different year. That was
2006. No, that was 2006. We're going way back, and then the Hurricanes stole one at the Rock, which still won't forget. But
if it was 06, then it was Continental Airlines Arena, right?
Yeah. So, but the one in 2001, I remember in the parking lot, we were all talking about Jeremy Shockey for whatever reason. We were talking about Jeremy Shockey, I think. But anyway, this series, Nick, I don't know how you feel. I think you go either way. I know a lot of the pundits are saying Carolina and Carolina early, but I don't feel that way. I really don't feel that way. I think it's going to go all 7, in my opinion. They're going to use every bit of games allotted to them because the inconsistency.
I said the same thing. These two teams are both bad. Like, these aren't good teams as far as playoff teams go. I think they're both good enough to make the playoffs. But the thing about Carolina is they've been stinky lately too.
Yeah.
And the reason here's the thing, is that I think people forget. Before the whole Rantanen crazy not working out situation, Carolina and the Devils were like 2 points apart. This was in late February? They were 2 points apart. And Carolina, late February, the Devils had been playing bad for 2 months at that point. And Carolina playing just as bad. They just had that little cushion on the Devils. And then Carolina gets rid of Rantanen. The narrative changes for them. They get Logan Stankoven, who's super motivated. The whole team, it feels like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. They're so happy. It's like an us against the world mentality. They go on a run. I think they won a bunch of games in a row, 6 or 8 games in a row. But since then, the motivation has worn off a little bit. The us against the world mentality has worn off a little bit. We've seen this all the time where teams get hot at the wrong times. And, you're world beaters in March. But you played 8 games in April, and I think they're 4-4-1, maybe 4-5-1 after losing. And they lost to Montreal last night. Everybody in the world was rooting for Carolina last night so that Columbus could get into the playoffs. Everybody outside of Quebec. They failed us. I think people are a little upset with them. But no, Carolina, they have goalie issues. They have inconsistent scoring. The only thing they got going for them is they probably have a top 5 defense in the playoffs, maybe top 3. Their defense is still stellar. But the Devils have, with Dougie Hamilton back, when you take out that 6th defenseman where you're like, oh gosh, are we playing Nemetz? Are we playing Casey? Are we playing Cholowski? Or, taking out that question and that concern and making it Dougie Hamilton of all people, and Dougie Hamilton looked like peak of his powers, Dougie Hamilton yesterday. I think, I don't want to say it's a wash. Carolina still has one of the best defensive units in the league, maybe the best. But if both teams are shutting down the other offense, it doesn't matter, right? If both teams are holding the other team to 0 or 1 goals, it doesn't matter if you're the best defense or the 5th best defense because the result is the same. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's reasons to be optimistic. And I'm going to have more playoff articles over the next – how many days I got? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Over the next 4 days, then everybody who's reading out there is going to know what to do with. I'm going to do – we have the big playoff preview coming out tomorrow. That's where all of the Devils writers for Pucks and Pitchforks do the preview, give you your thoughts, give you your predictions, what exactly is going to happen, things like that. That's coming out tomorrow morning. But I'm going to do 5 guys who can earn a big payday in the playoffs. I'm going to do 3 reasons why the Devils can win, 3 reasons to be pessimistic about the Devils. There's going to be so many different playoff angles I'm going to take. I want to take a deep dive into the Carolina Hurricanes, New Jersey Devils playoff history. Kind of want to take a look at what happened in those 5 matchups and what can we learn from those 5 matchups. Some people don't think you can learn a lot from teams 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I think you can if you just try to look at the basics of the game and how they were played. I'm going to dive into a lot. I think there's there's reasons to be optimistic, Sam, and it's hard, right? Because the Devils went 1-5-0 the last 6 games or something like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, there was no incentive or motivation to actually play these games, and you're looking at big picture. I think they were playing at 75% to what they normally would, and the reason why I say why overextend yourself when it doesn't matter, and
I don't
to be
love
healthy
that too, though.
What's that?
Yeah, I don't love that either, though. That like, then why play? Why put the guys in these games? Like, why put Brett and Heischer and?
Well, it's because they're professionals. They all have contracts, incentives. You still want to hit those marks. If you take away games, then it's suddenly a CBA, NHLPA issue. So
no, I get it.
But they're professionals. But the most part, I mean, you saw what happened to Plot. And all week I've been talking about when Dave Andrechuk got hurt on the 82nd game against Philadelphia back in 1997. And Vinny Parisi looked it up. He's like, wow, your memory's pretty good. But I remember that game because they needed Andrechuk. And you lose him on that last game over a somewhat meaningless game. It was just, and to your rival, it wasn't good. So, but right now, barring any freak accident, I think the Devils are as good as they're going to get. Yes, they are without Jack Hughes, but they got Dougie Hamilton back. That helps quite a bit, whether he's 100% or not. And it takes some pressure off of Luke Hughes, which I think is going to be good, because he's going to get a lot of ice time. Luke Hughes. And Paul Cotter had a 2-day rest from that suspension, which I don't think he deserved personally, but they had to do it, apparently.
Yeah.
But I
think the optics were bad, but the NHL usually doesn't care about optics. So it was he clearly made a mistake, and usually they don't punish you for that, right? Like, he was very empathetic immediately. He kind of like put himself in a bad position. And they said that in the suspension video. I don't know if you watched the video from the NHL.
I did. I thought it was hogwash.
Department of Player Safety. Yeah, they said he put himself in a bad position and he skated at the wrong angle, which was weird because every time I've watched plenty of those videos just from both sides, just writing about them, and oftentimes they try to look at intent, right, or perceived intent.
Yeah.
And this one they were just they were kind of he made a dumb move, and
I disagree. Like it's one thing if you're careless with your stick, and then you hit somebody in the eye, that you can prevent. But if you ask Paul Cotter right now, or ask any hockey player right now, if you have to do it over again, what would you actually do to actually prevent what actually transpired? I mean, you want your players to go hard after the puck,
Right.
And I don't fault Pelech. I think it was just a freak accident, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you know what I think happened? I've watched this a couple times now. Obviously, I don't think he thought Pelech was going to shoot, and you see him tense up when Pelech's stick goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever you want to call it. He didn't shoot it, obviously, but he took a slap shot to clear the puck. So it's almost like he tensed up, tried to be well, I'm in a weird position, so let me go for the hit. Had the wrong angle because he was. There was a lot of things that I think. Again, Cotter wasn't trying to lay a dirty hit. It is what it is. He got suspended 2 games. I don't think anybody's fighting it because the games didn't matter. It's not a playoff game. It's not going to go into next season. So I think everybody's fine. But yeah, I agree. I think it seemed like an overreach. I thought he was going to get a game just because of the optics, but I think him too.
But I also believe, and this happened to me once playing hockey, but I also believe that if Cotter went and tried to avoid him completely, he might have got hurt himself.
Yeah.
I
think that's part of it.
I mean, there was one time I never broke it at that point in my life. I never broken a bone. and I was coming up, and he was actually a very weak skater. And I tried to do the gentlemanly thing. We were on a collision course to try to avoid him, but I couldn't. And my skate got caught in between his two skates. Not only did I get laid out, but I broke my ankle on that play by trying to avoid him instead of just hitting him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I tried to avoid it because he was a weak skater. Didn't want to. It's a men's beer league. Didn't want to. And I'm the one that's the broken ankle. So I sympathize with Cotter there. At least they didn't go more than 2 games. So basically, he just got a vacation out of it, unpaid vacation.
I mean, he lost a pretty good chunk of money, but he's also getting paid he's getting paid. I think he's in he's under $800,000. So he's getting paid as little as someone can in the league.
Yeah. So I mean, look, in my mind as a crazed fan, I was going to set up a GoFundMe to help pay for that, but you know what?
You need to make like $2,000, so you don't have much.
But anyway. So the playoffs, the scheduling is a little weird, but the Devils, from a fan standpoint, you got Friday at home, Sunday at home, and then if there's a Game 6, another Friday. How cool is that?
Yeah, Devils looked out, as far as a fan schedule, Devils looked out tenfold, like in spades. In spades. Yeah, it's...
And I like that 8 p.m. start. The 8 p.m. start on them.
Yeah. No, what's the Sunday time again?
3:30.
Okay. I just do. I wish it was like 5, but it's fine. At least it's not like 12. Like that. The 2 Rangers games we had this year that were 12 o'clock starts.
Oh.
Yeah. No, 3:30 is fine. It is what it is. No, I'm so excited about playoff hockey coming back to the Rock. It was. The last time the Devils were in the playoffs, in 2023, it was so much fun, but it was also like my son was born in the middle of that playoff series. So I was so distracted from life. Couldn't go to any games, obviously. Like there was just too much on the line. I watched. I want to say it was Carolina Game 2 from the hospital. I think it was Carolina Game 2. It might have been Game 4. Oh no, it was Game 4. It was Game 4 because my son at that point had not been alive for a Devils win until the next season. So, it was, but it was, it was just a different experience. This one I get to come to the Rock, come watch some games, sit with the fans, go to American Whiskey, have a great time, enjoy everything, all of the trimmings of the playoffs. There's as strange as this season has been, Sam, and I'm not going to tell you that this hasn't been a trying season, because it has. It's been hard to be a Devils fan this year. But I'd rather it be hard and make the playoffs than any alternative where you're not making the playoffs, right? I'd rather you have the insane amount of complaining, you have just the hard knock, everybody's mad at everything kind of thing, and every loss is like the end of the world, and every win is expected, and just the stress that came with the season. But you made the playoffs. And here's the thing. Pessimism aside, there's reasons to like this. Like what's in front of them. Carolina's a flawed team. I even think Washington's a flawed team.
I agree.
Montreal is incredibly flawed. If Montreal beats Washington, oh my God, you'll never hear the end of it from Montreal fans. I would want so bad to put that team in the dirt, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'm looking at the Metro. This is a bad conference. It's not a good conference. Like every team is in the middle, right? Washington had this great season, but did they split with the Devils or did they win 3-2? I forget. They split with the Devils, right? They both won 2 games. Do you remember? Devils and Washington. I know the Devils got 2 wins against them, but I can't remember if they played 5 games or 4 games. But either way, it's
Nick.
it's not like this team was on it.
In regards to your text, which way? Full screen. Me?
We're too close to Alex now at this point. So
okay. Sorry.
Literally, like, I hear my shower dripping in the background. It's super distracting, but it's fine.
Oh, I don't even hear it.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't hear it.
But anyway, it is set up to make a run for one of these teams. I just don't, it's just impossible to figure out who it is, and nobody's expected to be the Devils, which kind of makes me feel like it could be, right? Like Jacob Markstrom looks better. Is he the best goalie in this part of the bracket between the 4 teams? I on paper, I say yes. Well, what's his name? Logan Thompson's had a great season. Like, I trust Jacob Markstrom more than Logan Thompson. Or is it going to be Charlie Lindgren? Whoever it ends up being in Washington. I would think it'd be Thompson. Thompson's had the better season. But
he's got the better contract.
Yeah. I mean, Lindgren has a pretty good contract, though. They gave both those guys pretty decent salaries. Yeah, I think the Devils can go on a run. They have the stars, right? Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes. I think by Byron Bader's model, who we've had on the podcast before, I think the Devils have 7 stars, 6 of them who lived up to that name. Now, one of them is Jack Hughes. Doesn't count. One of them is definitely Dougie Hamilton, coming off an injury. But you still got, like I said, Hughes. You got Nico Hischier. You got Jesper Bratt. You got Timo Meier. Like, you got a sick team. And out of nowhere, Mercer ended the season. Dawson Mercer ended the season with 19 goals, which is I want more, but that's not the disaster that everybody was making it out to be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he's been better as of late. Like since they put him at center, he's been a better player. He's been a useful third line guy, which is fine with what he is right now.
Yeah. By the way, we've got our next guest in the Andy Green Room, by the way. Also, speaking of an Andy Green Room, we actually have an Andy Green Room at American Whiskey right now. On the 3rd floor. It's called the Attic. So whenever we bring our guests, someone like Alex Chauvancy, if he was ever to come there, American Whiskey for Game Day Live, he'd be in the Andy Green Room where we'll feed him, serve drinks before they come on air. It's a new luxury item that we have at American Whiskey. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You're going to have to give me a tour, especially of these drinks you speak of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, enough about drinks and Crew Brew and all that kind of stuff. Our next guest, his name is Alex Chauvancy, writer for On the Rush and pucksandpitchforks.com. And also, his ex-Twitter handle is at AlexC_NJD. Alex, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a while. How's it going, guys?
Alex, it's great to have you on. And yes, some might be surprised, we have recruited Alex to write the occasional long-form piece for pucksandpitchforks.com. So we want to give you a big Let's Go Devils podcast. Welcome to the blog. Thanks for joining us this year, Alex. It's been great.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. Thanks for having me join the team. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So the season has been not so fun. The season has been weird, I guess. I don't even know how to explain it because we're in the playoffs and nothing matters up until this point. But let me ask you, I just want to be kind of direct before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty. How do you feel going into the playoffs? How do you feel now that the 82 games is done and the playoffs are starting? How do you feel about this team in this season?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird because, even though they're in the playoffs, it just feels like they kind of backed their way into the playoffs a little
Mm.
bit. It was more so just that like the rest of the Metropolitan Division is just not very good this season. Like the Rangers didn't make a run. Columbus made a little bit of a late push, but by the time they did, it was too late. So they couldn't catch the Devils, and it's not like the Devils have been playing great hockey since Christmas. They've been I don't know, dreadful is too strong a word, but like they've definitely struggled at 5-on-5. They kind of got in there because of their power play and their goaltending, specifically Jake Allen when Jacob Markstrom was out of the lineup with his injury. So I don't feel great, but at the end of the day, the mission was to get back into the playoffs, and they accomplished that. So even though the season wasn't great, it was a step in the right direction, in my opinion. It doesn't feel that way. It's kind of like a weird vibe going into the playoffs. I'm not even really sure how to describe it.
Now, all season you've been talking about how Tom Fitzgerald kind of overindulged on grit and toughness and all those things in the absence of speed. Like he took speed out of the lineup and replaced it with grit, toughness, whatever, hits, whatever you want to like call it. But the conventional wisdom is that's quote unquote playoff hockey. Do you expect the team to perform better in this format in this on this stage than they have maybe in a regular season 82 game format?
That's a good question. I think in some aspects they definitely will. Like compared to that 2022-23 team that beat the Rangers in 7 games, they do have a more balanced attack at 5-on-5. They can forecheck better. And that's because they have players like Paul Cotter and Stefan Nason in their lineup. Like those were good, gritty ads because they can score a little bit. They're not like a Curtis McDermott type who are just going to go in there and like kind of
Yeah.
throw the body around and just not really contribute offensively. So I think they can succeed in that regard. But at the same time, too, their biggest problem this year was 5-on-5 scoring. They just didn't really have enough juice, even with Jack Hughes in the lineup to score at 5-on-5. And against a team like Carolina, who's really good at 5-on-5, I think that could be a problem. So I think in some areas they will do better, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like this team has enough offensive firepower, even with Dougie Hamilton coming back. I think that's probably what's going to be their focal point of their offseason whenever that comes around, is trying to add more goals to the lineup. Even with Arseny Gritsyuk coming in, you're going to have to add some more top 9 players. So we'll see how it goes. I think they will be better in some regards, but at the end of the day, I think they probably won't have enough goals. Although you never know, Pyotr Kochetkov has really struggled for the Carolina Hurricanes going into the playoffs. So I think that's kind of your one opportunity, is to maybe take advantage of a goalie that's not feeling too confident heading into game one. That'll be interesting to see.
Let's talk about the goalie for a sec, just because I think it's clear that that's the key. I mean, personally, I think that's how the Devils win. Is Markstrom is January Markstrom, right? And he shook off the rust and he's back to full strength. And then Kochetkov, like you said, is kind of he's like a top 50 goalie, maybe. He's just not. He's fine. Do you think that Markstrom has that in him? Do you think he can be the guy again like he was, or are you still worried after seeing how he's been since the injury?
Yeah, I'm still a little worried, even though he was better his last 4 or 5 starts. The only start that he really stunk in those last 4 or 5 starts was the 7-2 loss to the Boston Bruins. He should have definitely saved at least 2 or 3 goals in that game, if I recall right. But he definitely is their best chance to upset Carolina. I don't think there's any question about it. You might even need to rely on Jake Allen, just the way goaltending is nowadays. I know in the playoffs it hasn't really changed much, but most teams use tandems now, and Jake Allen has been fantastic most of the season. So if you need to use him, you can use him if necessary. But I think the key will definitely be Jacob Markstrom. I can't remember, I was listening to this. I think it was on one of the Hockey PDO cast episodes this past week, but I think Jacob Markstrom has a pretty good track record against the Hurricanes, even though he was in the Western Conference for many years. And his playoff numbers are pretty good for his career. He's got a 911 save percentage, I think, for his in the playoffs, and Jake Allen has like a 925 save percentage too. So that's why if you need to turn to Jake Allen, you could do it. He's got a good track record in the playoffs as well. But the key to this series is definitely going to be goaltending. If the Devils don't get high end goaltending from either of those guys, I don't think it'll be too long of a series. That's just kind of been the thing with the Hurricanes in the playoffs for a few years now too. Is we've seen them get goalied enough, often enough, usually by Igor Shesterkin and the New York Rangers. They just kind of had the blueprint of how to beat these guys in the playoffs. So if the Devils get goaltending, I think it could definitely be a really interesting series.
Yeah, I mean that was such an That's an interesting point because something we don't really talk about 2 years later is that when the Devils beat the Rangers, like Shesterkin was still an all-world goalie. Like he was out of his mind good. It's just the Devils just ground them down, and they played really good defense. And you also mentioned Dougie Hamilton's return, and I mentioned this earlier on the podcast that it's not only just Dougie Hamilton's return, but it's the rise that you get from the Simone Nemec, Seamus Casey, Dennis Cholowski's types to Hamilton, like the difference between them. How you wrote about this on your Devils on the Rush Substack, which everybody should subscribe to. We'll share the link to that after the podcast. But talk about that a little bit. Like, how important is that addition to this lineup?
Yeah, I think it could be huge. And really, the only reason I watched that game last night was to see how Dougie Hamilton was going to do because that's his first, I think, first game in like 6 weeks or something like that.
Early
And he
March.
did
I think it
not.
was like March
Yeah,
6th or something.
I think yeah, it was like something around there when he got injured against Dallas. But he looked great last night. There was no rust in his game. And surprisingly enough, the Devils really dominated at 5-5 with a really watered down lineup. There was no Timo Meier, there was no Jesper Bratt, there was no Nico Hischier, Stefan Nason. They were all sitting. Luke Hughes as well. They were all sitting last night. But with Dougie Hamilton on the ice, they had a 30-11 shot attempt advantage, and they controlled almost 90% of the expected goals. I would be unfair to expect him to do that against the Carolina Hurricanes because they're a much better team than the Red Wings, but the area the Devils have really struggled since both Jack and Dougie went down was at 5-5, and if Dougie can kind of take back some of the game at 5-5, that gives the Devils a chance because the Hurricanes are one of the best 5-5 teams in the NHL, and I think you're going to see him probably log a lot of minutes with Nico and Jesper Bratt, depending on how Sheldon Keefe wants to break up those lines. But he could be a real. I don't want to getting Jack back would obviously be much bigger than getting Dougie back, but I think Dougie could have kind of impact where he makes this series more interesting, especially if the Devils get the goaltending they need.
Yeah, because like you mentioned but like the offense is huge. It's. You also wrote about something I hadn't thought about actually, which I'm a little embarrassed by, but I hadn't thought about the matchup of Jordan Staal against the Devils' top line and how important it is that doesn't get shut down. But if it does, like if Jordan Staal is able to shut down the Hischier Bratt line, the Devils can get offense from the defense, and that's kind of an X factor, right? Like if Dougie Hamilton is able to put some of those slap shots together and get some tips up front, or maybe even score himself. Do you think there's a route to winning there where it's scoring with your defense?
Yeah, for sure. Like they would have had no chance without Dougie to do that. They couldn't just put that all on Luke Hughes. And like Simone Nemec and Seamus Casey would be a really bad matchup against the Hurricanes in the playoffs. It'd be unfair to expect them to do that as well. But with Dougie back now, yeah, I think you can hope that even on the power play too, you have Luke Hughes and Dougie operating one of the two power play units. I don't know if they're going to put Dougie back on the first unit. We'll see. But either way, you're going to expect both those guys to get power play minutes. So it could definitely help in that regard. And just, yeah, I think you made a good point with Jordan Staal too. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a Selke finalist. He was last season, and he's probably definitely going to get top 5 votes at least this season. And I think you're going to have to find ways to get around that, especially when you're in Carolina, because if you look at Carolina's home and road records, they're really night and day. I think Carolina is something like 31-9 in regulation at home, and they have a losing record on the road. I don't remember what it was. I think like 16-20-4 or something like that. So, and my guess is the reason is that, Rod Brindamore really uses his home ice advantage matchup wise to his advantage. So if you get Jordan Staal out there, I would have to imagine they're going up against Nico Hischier, and that's probably why I would want to split Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, because if Jordan Staal can take them out, where are you going to get the offense? Otherwise, I don't think you could just rely on Dougie to do that. So it'd be interesting to see what Sheldon Keefe decides to do.
Yeah, and he's done that before, right? He's put Brett on an island to try to get Eric Kalla going, to try to get Dawson Mercer going. Jesper Bratt's kind of the team's mercenary, right? Like he's able to um, lift up his teammates, right? We joked we have the Pucks and Pitchforks group chat. We joked that maybe Jack Hughes is just the Jesper Bratt merchant. Maybe the reason just Jack Hughes is scoring like he is because he's with Jesper Bratt for so much. So I agree. I think that if Carolina plays, especially at home, like when they're in Carolina, where they can play matchups better because they have last change. I think it's I think there's a chance that it gets hairy for the Devils top line, and they're gonna have to probably Sheldon Keefe's probably gonna have to get creative here. I want to talk about Sheldon Keefe for a second. First, let me ask you this: how do you think he's done in his first year in the Devils?
I think given with what he's had to work with, he's done a pretty good job. Like I would probably give him, like a B plus A minus for the grade he did. Like the reality is like this roster is just, especially with Jack and Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton missing so much time, like the roster is just really not that good, especially in the bottom six. They don't have the depth this season, and that's something they're gonna have to address whenever their season comes to an end. But I think given what he's had to work with, I think he's done a pretty good job. I mean, before Jack got hurt, he was having an outrageous season. The two-way game, I think, was like a noticeable improvement with Jack this season too. Jesper Bratt had a career season. Nico Heischer's career high in 35 goals. He's probably going to be a Selke finalist. So I think he's done a lot of good things for the top players of the team, but like there's only so much he could have done with some of these bottom six players. Like no disrespect to like Justin Dowling, but like that's not someone you want in your lineup going into the playoffs, right? Like you would want to have better center depth there. And Curtis Lazar and Nathan Bastian had tough seasons too. I don't really, and like I think Keefe obviously recognized that because he wasn't really playing them the last couple of weeks of the season. So there was only so much he could do there. So I think he did a pretty good job. I really don't have too many complaints.
Yeah, I think and I think this is injury related, like truly, just because if you like people forget, but Curtis Lazar was supposed to be out till like the end of January, and he came back in the beginning of December. I think he rushed back, and I don't think he's ever been healthy ever since. But he just looks like a different guy than he did last year. Halla is very like famous how terrible he's been, and I think he came back too early from an injury as well. So I think both of them just kind of threw their season for a loop and have just been trying to play through injuries. But and that's part of it, right? That's part of it as a head coach. I kind of want to get to legacy here. Obviously, Sheldon Keefe comes from the Maple Leafs, which famously never got out of the first round. Do you think it hurts his legacy at all for him to go to a different franchise and have the same result?
Um, yeah, I mean the narratives are gonna be terrible if the Devils lose in the first round, just because he was with Toronto beforehand, and people will be like, "Oh, look, he didn't get it done with another team." But I think it's not really comparable. Like the Devils are missing the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, and Jonas Siegenthaler, and Jack Hughes was a top five, top 10 player in the NHL this season. Like
Yeah.
if it's not like people have to take the injuries into account, and even though Dougie's coming back, you're still missing two great players that would probably have the series at like a 50-50 toss up, or at least around there if they were playing. So I don't like you can't hold it against Keefe if the Devils don't make it out of the first round this time. From what I've seen too, it's not like a lot of people are picking the Devils to win this series too. So I
Right.
think if people were picking the Devils, if the Devils were the favorites and people were picking them to win the series, I think yeah, it probably wouldn't be a good look. But I think most people know that they're underdog and they have a tall task ahead of them because of the injuries.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's an unfortunate situation, right? Because I would love for Sheldon Keefe to be able to kind of shake off. Like I know he made it out of the first round the one time, but then they lost to what 5 to Florida that year. So he
Yeah,
has one second round win
was it
in
even
his
a
career.
sweep? It might have been a sweep. Yeah,
I thought it was a sweep, but I think they won one. I thought it was a sweep,
yeah,
and then I went
maybe.
back and
Oh yeah,
I
I
thought
think
they
you're
were
right.
one
Yeah, I
one
think it
game.
was 5 games. Yep.
A gentleman's sweep, as they say. The
Yeah,
Florida
yeah,
allowed them
basically.
to have that one win. Um, so, and we're coming up on time. I want to make sure that we get to everything, but I guess the last thing that I want to ask you is just kind of, I'm trying to like word this correctly, just because like I don't want it to be too negative, but I mean Luke Hughes has been kind of strange the last like 2 weeks. Just kind of looks like he's pushing a little bit, making more mistakes than I'm used to him seeing. He's a guy like you talked about earlier about Jack Hughes' defensive prowess. Like Luke Hughes at times looked fantastic defensively this year. I haven't seen it over the past 2 weeks. Are you at all? I mean, you can't have him any less than stellar in this series. So, do you think maybe it was just going through the motions and he'll lift it up in the playoffs? Maybe he needed that day off where he didn't play in Game 82. Are you worried at all about Luke Hughes? What do you expect from him in this playoffs?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned just because of the style of hockey that Carolina plays. That tough, kind of relentless forecheck. They're going to be dumping pucks in all the time, so you're going to have to be quick on puck retrievals and transitioning the puck out of the defensive zone. But I think this is where Dougie Hamilton helps. Now that you have Dougie back, it's going to be Dougie and Brendan Dillon, and maybe for better or worse, taking those first pair minutes from Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce. I think Hughes and Pesce will probably have their role reduced just slightly. I'm sure they'll still be playing top 4 minutes, or maybe not. I guess if you keep Brian Dumoulin and Jonathan Kovacevic in. So I think it's definitely like a usage thing. Like Sheldon Keefe was asking a lot of Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce with Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton now. But now that Hamilton's back, he goes back to pair with Dillon, and Brendan Dillon looked really good against Detroit. I don't think that's like a little thing that goes unnoticed. Like he definitely plays much, much better with Dougie Hamilton, and he kind of even said so to Amanda Stein after the game. So there's that. And then Dumoulin and Kovacevic have been playing together since the trade deadline, so they're comfortable with each other. So you're going to have three defense pairs that are all comfortable playing with each other at this point. And I think now that you have Luke and Pesce, who probably won't be getting the hardest defensive minutes at this point, I think it'll help him in this series, especially against Carolina. So I'm kind of like a little bit concerned just because of the way Carolina plays, but I also think this is where the Dougie thing helps, like just the rest of the blue line. Like everyone falls back into different positions that are probably more, I guess, better for them. They'll put themselves in better positions to succeed, and I think that'll definitely help Luke.
Yeah, and this will be my last question. You brought up Brian Dumoulin, and I'm interested in your thoughts because I don't think anybody liked the trade. It was just a lot to give up for what Brian Dumoulin is at this point in his career, and the fact that he's a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. But just based on his play, like, do you think he's got the possibility of being an X factor in the series?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a ton of playoff experience, right? He won at least one Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh, maybe two, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. So, like, he's been in the playoffs plenty. I think in an ideal world, you'd like to have him as your third pair defender, but with the injury to Jonas, I think he's going to be probably playing at least top 4 minutes with Kovacevic, something of a mix at least. But he's been good for the Devils for the most part since they acquired him. He You won't notice him most nights, which is a good thing, I think, for a defensive defenseman. His numbers with Kovacevic have been pretty solid too. I don't know about X factor, but like he can definitely help because he's a big body and he defends the rush pretty well. He should be pretty good on puck retrievals if I'm not mistaken. So, and those are kind of things you need defensively to combat what the Hurricanes are going to try to do on offense. So I think X factor maybe not, but I definitely think he can help in ways that you probably won't notice on the score sheet.
Fantastic. Before we let you go, you probably want to save your series prediction for the blogs, but do you have a bold prediction for what might happen?
Bold prediction. So
Like
I don't
it could
know
be
if,
play related, it could be
yeah.
just circumstance related.
Um, so I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but I'll say the Devils take it to 7 games, and we'll see what happens
Okay.
then.
Okay. Hey, me and Sam said the same thing. So we got 3 guys on this podcast. 3, I like to call us intelligent guys, saying 7 games is on the table. I think this reminds me a
Yeah,
lot of that Florida Devils series in 2012, where that Devils team was kind of flawed as well, but everybody just kind of wrote Florida off, and then Florida took it to 7 games in double overtime. I think a lot of Devils fans would call it a win if you take this series to 7 games.
yeah, definitely. And I think 6 games definitely wouldn't shock me, just because of Carolina's previous playoff troubles. But yeah, I don't think it's impossible that the Devils make this competitive. Like I've been seeing a lot in my mentions the last couple of weeks, like Carolina has taken this series in 3 games, like ha ha ha, very funny. But I think it could be pretty competitive. It wouldn't shock me if it went to 6 or 7 games.
So Alex, Chauvancy, Devils on the rush, Pucks and Pitchforks. Why don't you real quick just let everybody know what you got coming up the pike before the playoff game and where they can find you.
Yeah, so today I wrote about Dougie Hamilton's game against the Red Wings. If you haven't read that yet, you could check my pinned tweet on my Twitter account. The link is there. And then I'm just starting to get work on it, so it's probably going to be pretty lengthy. But Saturday morning, at some point, I should have the series preview out for the Devils and Hurricanes, with a lot of in-depth analysis, advanced stats, stuff like that, looking at different matchups as well. So that'll be out Saturday morning.
And I just retweeted the Dougie Hamilton post from the Pucks and Pitchforks account. So if you're following that one, you can go check it out there. But yeah, looking forward to that preview on Saturday. You're a part of the preview that's coming out tomorrow on puck2pitchforks.com. So we have a lot of Alex Chauvancy, and we like it that way. So Alex, thanks so much for coming back on. We've missed you, but I'm sure we're going to have you on again for the playoffs, the offseason, and all the other things that are coming on. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good time, guys.
Thanks, Alex. That is Alex Chauvancy, pucksandpitchforks.com. Is it Devils on the Rush? Is that what it is?
Devils on the Rush, yeah.
Devils on the Rush?
On Substack, yeah. On
Okay.
Substack.
All right. Wow.
Sam, it's been a while since I've done a close. And I feel like I fumbled the ball there. But
No. This is, it's like riding a bicycle, right?
Yeah. Well, I got hit by a car, but that's okay.
All right.
No, listen, Alex gave us so much great insight there. We talked about so many different things, and I think that's kind of the point here is that there's so much nuance in this series. It could come down to playoff Palat. It could come down to Dawson Mercer has a really good series. It could come down to Mr. Motivation, Eric Holla, who hates the Hurricanes. Eric Holla hates the Hurricanes, and they hate him too. And that could push him to new heights. It could be Nico Hischier. It could be Jesper Bratt. Timo Meier could be March Timo, right? Like he's been since March 1st. Timo's been one of the best players on the ice at all times. He's been so great. Luke Hughes could take over the series after getting a couple of days off and kind of resetting his body and kind of taking a breather. There's so much that could happen in the series, and you could see Jacob Markstrom steal some games, right? Like Jacob Markstrom has that in him, and you saw with Akira Schmid in 2023, right? You never know who's going to be the hero. You go into the playoffs, you have high hopes, you hope for the best. I'm talking to Devils fans directly. Please don't go into the playoffs pessimistic. Like, go into the playoffs with high hopes. And you'll talk to all these people and be like, well, we're going to get swept, and I'm realistic. It's like, no, you're annoying. Like, go in. Like, we made the playoffs. Like, be excited. Root for your team. Like,
there's one guy you missed who I think is going to be the X factor, the impact.
Bastion.
Cody Glass.
Okay.
I think that's the missing link on that third line. And even in 2023, the performance of that third line was the difference. Third and fourth line was the difference getting through the New York Rangers. And I think that trade, Fitzgerald did not make a splash, but he made the right trades, I think, so far. And
listen, yeah.
And I think that Cody Glass trade might be the one that comes back and be like, wow, he got us through the round one.
Yeah. Going back to what you just said about the trades, all of those players have fit into the lineup well. Daniel Sprong's fit in well. Brian Dublin's fit in well. Cody Glass is fit in well. Cholowski, I mean, he's an AHL guy, and you're trying to there's just a lot of injuries, and someone Nemitz is not taking the spot, right? And neither is Seamus Casey. So Cholowski has played a role, but again, you traded Adam Beckman for it, and Adam Beckman got suspended for the entire season. for checking a referee. So, it's not like you didn't end up losing much there. I gotta give Fitzgerald a little praise there because Glass is a guy, right? And like I want them to resign Glass. Like he's a guy that you like. He's getting paid more than like you might think. I think he's like $2.75 million. So like, do you have to give him a raise on that? He's an RFA. He's a restricted free agent, so you have rights there. And you gave up something for him, right? It was what? It was Stillman, Chase Stillman, another prospect, and a draft pick. I can't remember what the draft pick was. Was it a fourth rounder? Do you remember?
Something like that. I mean, it was nothing significant where it's like, okay, he overpaid. I think he paid the right price.
I'm not missing anything they gave up for Cody Glass.
Yeah.
No, it's because they didn't give up either. They still have the 2 second-round picks, right?
I believe so. Yep.
So that's huge to make moves in the offseason, right? Those second-round picks get you decent players. And you gotta, did he replace Jack Hughes? No. Did he make this team one that could go on a run? No. But, short of selling the farm for Mikko Rantanen, I don't know what move was out there to do that. And Cody Glass is as good as any to – basically what he did is Fitzgerald fixed the things that were still wrong when Jack Hughes was healthy.
Correct.
And, so I think, if Jack Hughes is still in this lineup and the same exact trades happen, I think the Brian Dumoulin one would always be I think he overpaid by a lot. But it's okay. Like, he fits. If Brian Dumoulin helps them, if they win this series, doesn't matter what they paid for Brian Dumoulin. Before we go, Sam, I do want to talk about an article I wrote. I don't know if you read this, but did you know, and you're like the history guy, so you probably do know this, the Devils continue to streak this year. They have never missed the playoffs with 90 points or more, ever in the history of the franchise.
Wow.
Yeah, they've never missed the playoffs with 90-plus points. They missed the playoffs once with 89.
Was that in 96?
No, I think it was 92 or something like that. 91.
No, they went to the playoffs in 92.
Then maybe 91.
No, they went to the playoffs in 91. I remember all this stuff. I think it was 90. I think it was 96.
Was it 96?
Last game of the season, I believe they played the Ottawa Senators. Radek Bonk, I think, scored, and
Radek Bonk. Oh man, I remember that guy.
Yeah, I remember because I was so mad. It's like you win the Stanley Cup, and the next year you're like, meow.
I remember they did that. I just couldn't. I thought it was. Hold on. Because now I'm curious. Because it's. I have it up right here. I just want to look.
95, 96 Devils. That's. I remember it very well. I don't know about the points, but I remember they were like at that 8th spot for so long, and then they played Ottawa, and they were supposed to beat, and it didn't happen, and they didn't make.
They got 86 points that year.
86.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that year that you're referring to.
No, I'm trying to find it, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. But I could have sworn there was one with 89. 13-14, they got 88. Didn't make it that year.
Nick, we should
Maybe
do
I'm
our
thinking
research
87.
off air.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's 87 is what I was, not 89.
Okay.
But they made the playoffs both. The what I'm looking at with 87. I don't know. Now I'm just gonna call it a loss. A loss at the end of the podcast. But so the Devils have made the playoffs every time they've gotten 90-plus points. Here's the issue, though, Sam. Every time they've gotten between 90 and 100 points. So They didn't hit triple digits, but they had above 90. They've lost in the first round. It's happened. They've only had that point total. It's either 3 or 4 times before this. They've lost in the first round each time. Not a great precedence to send, but listen, it's all, it's no expectations and all vibes from here on out, right? Like I'm going into this just enjoying the fact that we're playing an 83rd and 84th and 85th and 86th and 87th and 88th and 89th game of hockey. Yes, I'm manifesting the 7 games.
You jinxed it, Nick.
I don't believe in jinxes. I believe in speaking things into existence. If I say it, therefore it will happen.
Oh yeah. Sorry, my camera went out. I'm still here.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can listen. Let me do a quick plug. I plugged a lot of stuff already, but we have stuff on the blog so far.
Very nice.
Yeah, I went into depth about this little record of the Devils. So that's on pucksandpitchforks.com. I also talked about Dougie Hamilton and his big game. Vinny Parisi wrote about the schedule release today and kind of when the games are. So always go to pucksandpitchforks.com. If you don't know where the schedule is, Vinny Parisi kind of went into depth about when the Devils are going to be playing. I talked about Andre Palat and the injury that he suffered. Oh, Sam, I did this. I thought this was kind of fun. I talked about Mikhail Igorov losing in the Frozen Four.
Yep.
It was an unfortunate result, but all positive for his first season in NCAA. He looks fantastic. I think he's the future. I'm off the Nico Dawes train and I'm on the Igorov train, but I think that this one's kind of full. We might have to pay a little extra, Sam, to get a first-class ticket on the Igorov train. But last night was Made in Jersey night, right, for the Fan Appreciation Night. So I wrote about the 20 greatest things that were made in New Jersey. All kinds of things. I wrote about the light bulb and the phonograph, but I also write about El Toro in Jackson, New Jersey. And a couple of interesting things that you might not have known were made in New Jersey. Some companies, some restaurants.
Taylor Ham.
I don't know her.
Did you not write about Taylor Ham?
I didn't. I didn't want to get into that.
Oh.
We're not doing this, Sam.
Do you know also is made in New Jersey? The Let's Go Devils podcast.
Yeah. Let's Go Devils. There are some Devils-centric things on there, including this right here.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's on pucksandpitchforks.com right now. And we already promoted. We're doing the playoff preview comes out at 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. in the morning. The New Jersey Devils, Pucks and Pitchforks, playoff preview. I know there's at least 10 writers in my inbox with answers to questions about the playoffs that we were going to put into article format. That's coming out. So go to pucksandpitchforks.com over the next couple of days. There's going to be at least 10 playoff preview-centric articles. So go check it out.
Yeah, pucksandpitchforks.com. Also, I'm plugging. I'll be at American Whiskey. We're ordering up some more and Crew Brew. We're buying cans for outside. Ooh. When we have the big stage, we're going to attempt to bring out that 10-foot TV out onto the street for Game Day Live and Devils After Dark. Nick, this is going to be incredible. It's going to be spectacular. We're in playoff mode right now. I mean, it's been a while since we've actually had a full-blown big stage event at American Whiskey. We're talking lots of speakers. We're going to have great guests as well. It's going to be hard to get the MSG guests just because they got the first round. But if the Devils make it the second round, it's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. Bryce, Danico, Spalding.
Rachel.
Yep.
Yeah,
because they still go. right?
Yeah.
They go and they send the press box.
Yeah, they still have to cover. I mean, I'm sure they do some MSG, post game,
Like pregame stuff.
yeah, and all that kind of stuff, and I mean, they should be doing that.
What is Danico doing that?
He does a lot for NHL Network. I know that.
Okay,
Him and
that's
Bryce. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, because they're in
Speaking
high
of which-
demand.
We got to say a big congrats to Erica Wachter Burns.
Yes,
Expected baby number 2.
yes,
Baby number 2 on the way. I think it's baby number 2. I don't
Yeah.
follow her that closely to know if it's 2 or 3
baby
or
number
4, but
2. I follow Erica Wachter. Big fan. Also,
big congrats to her.
happy birthday to Ken Danico. Turning
Oh, it's his
61
birthday today?
Yes,
Wow, happy birthday to Ken Danico.
yes. Ken Danico, Mr. Devil himself, legend.
Legend.
Yes, legend.
Undoubtedly.
And also a good friend of the podcast, like Chico Resch, Matt Lachlan, Bryce Salvador, Bill Spalding, to name a few. We haven't had Rachel
And
on,
now
but we're going to have
Alex
Rachel on
Chauvancy.
soon. Yeah, and Alex Chauvancy. And thank you to Alex for coming on earlier. All right, well, we're going to get out of here, dropping the podcast at midnight. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Till next time, let's go Devils.